Good morning, everyone. Good Thursday morning. My name is Sophia. I curate and organize learning events for you to build and bring the community together through learning at Spectrum. So for those of you who are new to Spectrum, we are located at Dua Tower at Bugis. And aside from organizing and curating learning events like this, we provide event spaces and shared premium workspaces for you to work from. So we also provide the connections to expand businesses. So before we start today's webinar, we'd like to find out from you which industry you're from. Let's try this poll. Okay, I hope everyone can see the poll questions. So Irina, speakers, let's give everyone some time to come back.
Of course.
Okay, great. Let's give it 20 seconds. Right, so majority are from other industries. Okay, so let me welcome and introduce each of our prominent speakers today. In partnership with Fintech Academy, today's webinar is a series adaptation from a book titled Singapore, the Fintech Nation, and the journey forward to be discussed. So we are really excited to have the co-author with us today, Dr. Lillian Koh. She's also the founder of Fintech Academy. So research director at Curtin University as well. This is why Dr. Koh is a busy lady. She also spearheads the Healthcare Fintech Alliance or Academy. She's the advisor to the Institute of Blockchain Singapore. So Fintech Academy is a learning partner of Spectrum. It spearheads talent development programs ranging from financial literacy awareness to deep dive fintech and engineering courses. So next up, we have Navin Suri, CEO of Percipient. His mission is to enable mid to small tier banks go digital without technology transformation. So earlier, he was named Ernst & Young's prestigious Global Top 30 Accelerating Entrepreneurs. He has been a core member of the team that co-designed and co-developed API Exchange or APIX, the world's first open collaboration platform for the global financial services industry. So Navin has held senior roles throughout his career with APAC Remits at Citi, ING, and Bank of New York Mellon, and serves on the board of directors at Nomura Asset Management in Taiwan. So last but never the least, we've got Irina Chuchkina, Marketing Director APAC at Rapid. So who best to moderate this session? She's passionate about fintech. She has spent 15 years working on the intersection of marketing, payment, and technology across CEMEA and APAC regions. Previously, she was regional partner marketing for Grab, helped launch GrabPay and Grab Rewards, and led partnerships with MasterCard and banks, amongst others. So she holds an MBA degree from INSEAD and is based in Singapore with her family. So Rapid is a global fintech as a service unicorn backed by Stripe and General Catalyst. So without further ado, let's welcome speakers. But before that, audience, please post your questions onto the platform here, which will be addressed after the discussion. So Irina, over to you, please. Thank you.
Of course. Well, thank you very much, Sophia. So yes, my name is Irina. I'm going to be the host of your morning show today. So since this is a breakfast session, I hope you have your coffee or your kaya toast, whatever you prefer. And I'm here also joined by very distinguished, brilliant guests today. I'm extremely excited about this conversation, Dr. Koh and Navin Suri. So how we're going to do this today, we're going to leave some time at the end for the questions, but we're going to start with discussing the book just a little bit with Dr. Koh, since we have the opportunity to ask her about the experience of writing the book and also some insights that she's had throughout, the journey. And then we're probably going to spend some time discussing the open ecosystem or open marketplace and data framework and the potential impact of this new mentality. And then we're going to hear Navin speak or share a little bit more about the APIX platform and how it works, what it does, what's the genesis of it, and what it solves for the Singapore community and what is the future for the platform. So let me begin with the first part. Dr. Koh, first of all, as someone who has been part of the Singapore Fintech and following the journey of the Singapore Fintech, thank you for writing this book. This is the book. If you haven't seen seen it before. If you haven't read it, please do so immediately. I totally very much recommend it. I find it extremely important because I think it's critical to document the insights and be able to learn from each other's experiences, and also share this story, compare notes with some other countries. I wish there were sort of a library of those books and insights so that we could compare them. But I think for Singapore, that was it was probably a key milestone, the fact that we've launched the book. And I especially wanted to thank you for the part that describes the payments rail. So that's the part, again, that is very near and dear to my heart, like for someone who's lived all my life in payments. But before we get to discuss the book insights, I wanted to ask a little bit more about, so we've heard all of the different titles and roles and badges of honor that you hold, but tell us a little bit more about the personal story of Dr. Koh. So what is the journey that led you to writing it? How did you find yourself an author of the book?
Thanks, Arina. You definitely earned your title of being the marketing guru. Okay, hi everybody, good morning. Thank you for joining us here. As you probably know, my background, I've been teaching in Nanyang Technological University, NTU, for the past 17 years before I retired to serve my nation. So when I founded the Fintech Academy, the purpose was to ensure that all our people are aware of what's going on. The trouble with a lot of people is that they tend to focus on what they are doing best, which is very good, but it is very important to be kept abreast of what's happening around us. When I was teaching marketing, accounting, and business, we still keep a keen eye on what's going on in the world of fintech. So for the past 10 years, I was dabbling with fintech, like when I was a faculty associate in A-Star, and I was having some research grants to do AI and data analytics. And with all that background, we find that sometimes there are certain sectors that are still lagging. So when Varun and I got together, of course, we were in the SFA together, Singapore Fintech Association. And when we got together early last year, all right, we both agreed that it is important to document all these untold stories, and then we ensure we deliver the best stories to explain the journey of thousands of people who contributed to the building of Singapore, the Fintech Nation. Tell you something, when we started with Singapore, Fintech Nation.
Okay.
And then, yes, and then we went around, interviewing people, and I personally interviewed 70 people.
Wow.
So actually, I have 65 founders and I've got 5 bankers. All right. So we interviewed the insurgents and the incumbents because we needed to bridge that. Yeah. So when we interviewed the 65 founders, we get a lot of very, very compelling stories. We get a lot of validation. And when we spoke to the other big names, from all over the world, we were given the thumbs up. Yeah. And that's how we got Singapore, the Fintech Nation. But as an academician, I am quite cautious, quite conservative, and I was still trying to decide, Singapore, Fintech Nation, the Fintech Nation. I think that was a mantra. So as I write and as I read and as I gather a lot of confidence in that validation process and that triangulation, the came up. When we submitted to MAS for their so-called approval to see whether this book is publishable or not, we were pleasantly surprised that, that we have got that endorsement. And of course, the best news was when we approached Somnendu, the chief. All of us call him, chief all the time. The chief fintech officer in MAS And he said, yes. So he said, wow, you're going to set the stage for us in chapter 1? He says, okay, I'll do that. Bravo. We need to do that because it is the regulators that set the stage. It is the regulators that provide that conducive environment and allow you to experiment, to engage, to grow. You don't find that in anywhere. All right. So I'm very proud of Singapore.
I agree with you. When I was thinking about some of the key milestones in my experience, in my own point of view, one of them was actually the speech of Ravi Menon in 2016 when he was opening the Singapore Fintech Festival, the inaugural one, the first one. And he was talking about regulation that is conducive to innovation. And I found that, like, I actually reread that speech quite a few times because I find it so powerful. It sets the vision and the direction. And the government has been really consistently delivering on that ambition and that vision. It's been 5 years now, and we really are able to see the very strong impact of that mentality. Naveen, so you've been part of the Singapore ecosystem also for quite a few years, 6 years, am I right? Yeah. So what are the changes and milestones and stages that you observed? What do you think was the most impactful, like, throughout these years?
You know, you can't count them on your fingers for sure. There's just too many of them, and some by design, some by chance, some by luck, and you need both of them. But I think for me, 3 things stand out massively, and I would call them foundational. So back in 2015, when the Chief Fintech Office was set up by the MAS, I mean, that was quite crazy, actually. You know, to say, hey, you know, we want to really nurture and handhold and fertilize these startups and entrepreneurs and encourage them by giving them a voice of their own inside the financial services regulatory system. That was quite path-breaking at the time. And I think we've all seen, you know, how the Chief Fintech Officer and the Chief Fintech Officer's team have grown and almost become a part of the fintech ecosystem in Singapore and to a great extent globally. So I think setting up of that office was a design, but I think many of the experiments that that office has now done, some have worked really well, some are struggling, some are midway, which is the way it is meant to be anyways. And, you know, the MD of MAS often acknowledges very, very openly that, you know, there are some experiments that work, some that don't work. So I think the Chief Fintech Office that was created was one milestone. I think the second thing that came out of the first one, I think, is the Singapore Fintech Festival. Oh my God. I mean, that event is something that you look forward to every year. I think I look forward to it more than my birthday. You know, because it's just so energizing to be at that place. I often say, you know, I walk about, you know, 30,000 steps a day for those 4 or 5 days. And I lose about 2.5, 3 kilos because I forget to eat. You know, there's so much to do, so many people to meet, network, learn, sell. It's just incredible. And, you know, so I think the way the Singapore Fintech Festival has taken over the world, literally. I often tell Swapnendu that if the Singapore Fintech Festival was the consumer electronics show, which is a very B2C sort of event, that would probably be 500,000 people. You know, fintech is still more B2B, and hence, so I think the scale, if you were to proportion it, is almost at consumer electronics show or maybe more. So I think the Singapore Fintech Festival was a massive milestone, and I think everybody would agree with that.
I can't agree more. And I actually also love the choice of the name. It's not a conference, it's the festival. You're exactly right. It is full with energy and passion and activities. And yeah, I'm totally with you.
And then there is a third thing, which, you know, unfortunately not everyone can experience, but, you know, it's not a limitation. But, Varun got involved with this idea of trying to create a WhatsApp group. And, people will say, a WhatsApp group is a milestone in the journey of fintech of a country like Singapore. Well, actually it is. And, this got created sometime in 2015. And unfortunately, the limitation of 256 subscribers is very, very annoying. But this group started as an idea that, some payments guys will come together, and Varun, with his payments background from HelloPay, thought he was creating something for that subsector. But it's morphed into a full fintech ecosystem with experts, with CEOs, with startup founders, with bankers, with regulators. And, it was a Singapore system. It evolved into regional, even though the name still calls it ASEAN, but I think it has members from around the world. And I think it is so rich in its quality of conversations. It is so wide in the breadth of conversations. It's so deep in specific topics that I think it moves the industry forward. It moves the industry forward. So to me, I think the Chief Fintech Office that was created by the MAS, the Singapore Fintech Festival, and I think what's called the Chopal. Chopal is actually, a place where the village leaders meet. It's a Hindi word. That I think those are three massive milestones. There are 100 others, but I'd pick those three to answer that question.
And I think one of my own observations on the Chopal, I think the way I find it so critical to exist, and the format could be different, and probably I would love to see it scale up a little bit. But I think the power of it is that this is where the government speaks to the businesses and businesses speak to the government. This is the forum, an open dialogue that is really representing the new mentality when startups and VCs all come together, share their honest opinion. There's a lot of candor, there's a lot of the, sometimes tough and rough conversations, a lot of debating. But the power of the dialogue is something that is, that can't be underestimated. And that is the mental shift that probably was somehow created or conceived at the same stage in 2015 when the Chief Fintech Office was also conceived and created. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. So I actually reference the same man, the same person we've mentioned already, Supnender. So in the first, Dr. Koh, so that's the question to you. In the first chapter of the book, written by Supnender, Supnender speaks about the three effects, and basically they represent the network effect, the ecosystem effect, and the regulation effect. Can you tell us a little bit more, is that really the recipe for innovation led in Singapore? Is that the structure that can be taken to other countries and help them to replicate the success of Singapore? So how important those three pieces are in your perspective?
Absolutely. I think no experience is wasted, and especially when it is a success story, it is definitely transferable and is universal. So looking back, we have framed our Singapore's development with 4 anchor drivers that help us to grow Singapore as a vibrant fintech hub. So these anchor drivers are continuous innovation. And we do that all the time. We keep improving every day. While we are speaking now, I think there are a lot of people out there scurrying around, trying to find solutions, trying to think of better ways to do things cheaper, faster, and all. Collaborative network. That's another one that is very important. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Arina. Yes. So these 4 pillars are continuous innovation, collaborative network, comprehensive ecosystem, and conducive regulation. So we've got that INA as the acronym. So this innovation effect is very important because it's not just lip service. All right, you've got to lead the change. Like Gandhi say, be the change you want to see. Don't just talk, right? Do it. Yeah. So the innovation effect has got a lot of impact for us, a small little red dot. The network effect is even more powerful because you see, we are tiny, right? It's just a dot. But if you can build this network effect, it's going to have this outreach to bigger markets, to bigger names. Now, everybody globally has heard of our Singapore Fintech Festival. So you build that perceptual scale. So while we are small, all right, we think big. Yeah. And that has a lot of impact and effect because the moment we are able to show the world that we can do it, then we go a long way and we pave the way for our other innovators to go beyond Singapore, beyond the shore. And of course, all this can only happen if you have got the ecosystem effect. The ecosystem of being very inclusive and very engaged goes a long way. And we have that in our ingredients of being a successful fintech nation.
Okay, so as we transition into the second part of our conversation, which we'll speak about where we will discuss open infrastructure, open marketplace and data, I wanted to ask Naveen, so for those people that actually don't come from the fintech or payments background, can you just explain and I guess in simple terms, tell us more about what this ecosystem model is, how does this mentality work and how is it different from the mentality that was previously, I guess, considered normal?
Yeah, so there are various interpretations. You know, ecosystems is a word that is used often very loosely. People use it as a business language. People call it a platform sort of language. Mm-hmm. But I think there is clearly a shift that the world is going through. And, you know, this is something that if in the audience there are people who are not from financial services would probably agree that you know, in banking, things are moving away from product to customer experience. And I often call them, you know, we're moving away from spaghetti banking to Lego banking. And that Lego banking is really when you bring different blocks together, which are more oriented not by product, but by the experience you want to deliver to a customer. They are not focused on the assets, but they're focused on data and how do I harness that data. Increasingly in financial services, you're seeing that ownership of data is giving way to shared access to data. And then there is structurally a change happening from, should I build this, should I buy this, or should I partner and do things? So I think the ecosystem that financial services has evolved towards is more open, which is, I mean, if you look at DBS Bank today, they have this single app. Who would have thought that inside a bank's app, you can, you know, book a taxi, you can order food, you know, you can book your travel, you can get to a travel agent. That's just, you know, something which even 7-8 years ago was unthinkable. So now there are regulations that are coming in, more so they were in Europe with PSD2 and open banking, where the customer decides if he wants to open up his data to third parties rather than the bank says, this is my data. So I think those sort of changes are also coming. They are driving the momentum towards giving the customer control of the data, and he or she decides how they want to give access to that data to a bank or to other banks or to third parties. And the bank is just one enabler of that.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm fascinated by how data can be better and probably more, I guess, used in a smarter way in the future. And I think on that note, I actually did want to ask you about the, you know, the digital twin model and what Percipient does, because I find it very incredible actually. When I heard your explanation of what that is, I wanted to ask quite a few questions. So perhaps you could just spend 2 minutes sharing that part of the.
Sure. So we're probably the only type of fintech in Singapore who taken advantage of our experience, having worked in banks over the last 25 years, to solve for a very ingrained, embedded problem with especially mid and small tier banks who have very disparate systems, legacy systems, bought for different goals at different times. Each system speaks a different language, and there is this urgent need to digitally transform. So you want to launch digital products, digital customer experiences, digital journeys, digital partnerships, and your systems hold you back from doing it.
Mm-hmm.
We've invented a method that's used in the manufacturing world, where if you take a look at a Tesla car, every car that's flying on the road today, Tesla has a twin, a digital twin of that physical car on the road, which is observing in real time the behavior of the driver and the behavior of the car. Now, if we were to enable a digital version of all legacy systems, a twin as we call it, without having the banks to first spend millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, and 3 to 5 years just modernizing their legacy, how cool would that be? So the digital twin really enables a bank and an insurer to launch everything digital without modernizing their legacy systems. You can keep everything which is 30, 40 years old and yet do everything that you want to do digital.
I love the idea. It's about basically leveraging new technologies to understand your existing business and where it stands, to innovate and transform it, and then hopefully connect it to this wide open ecosystem, the universe of the APIs and the external platforms, in order to be able to pick up the elements and plug them into the model, the flows, the sequences, the processes, the user experience. And this is really, to me, the power of the next generation of the innovative solutions that really leverage access to data, as well as the networks of and the infrastructures that have been created in the past couple of years. So, Dr. Koh, I actually wanted to now ask you my next question. I love the idea, and also, I mean, I'm part of the company. Rapid is the company that operates in this network ecosystem and data-rich kind of paradigm. So, you also speak about orchestrating this network effects. So I wanted to ask you about this chapter 6 of your book that really talks about it. What are the key principles, or perhaps some of the examples of how this orchestration can be done? Perhaps you could tell us a little more about your thinking behind it. How important is orchestration? And
you're on
mute. You're on mute.
Dr. Koh, you're on mute.
Dr. Koh.
I just said it is all over the book, right? So you must read the book. And so Singapore has always been a small market. I said that just now. But you find that, you know, sometimes you are too tiny, your voice doesn't get heard. So you must always position yourself as the gateway. So we are positioned as the gateway because we are already having that reputation of being a financial hub. So to build on it, all right, we continue, all right, to grow this asset. The proximity between Singapore and the neighbors, there you go. It is so strategic that you go zoom, you can go anywhere, you know, anytime, especially in ASEAN and Asian countries. And then we understand, all right, the very fragmented, different ASEAN neighbors that other people from elsewhere wouldn't comprehend. And we are good at that, right? So we are a wonderful bridge. And on top of that, you find that this web of networks has allowed Singapore to overcome this limitation of being a small market. So we find that the way our government, our regulators have done it is like, you know, you just look at the FinTech Sandbox as an example of positive network effects. it's so effortless, right? It's so easy to go and have access to all these wonderful big data. You get the giants looking at you, you get connected, and then you can do a lot of things that other people otherwise wouldn't have. Somebody was just sharing with me that it took him 8 years to do something. And when he was in the sandbox, like magic, he got it done. So I'm going to give away this book now, all right, to somebody who quickly send us, say, I do, and I'll give you the book, autographed by me. You can use the chat function. Come on, say, I do, and I'll give you the book.
You should really be on the morning shows, Dr. Koh.
See whether you're paying attention. So when you say I do, Sophia, please take down the information, and I will give the fastest fingers this book, autographed by me, because you've got to read all the rest of it.
Okay, we have it.
Okay, back to you, Arina.
We have at least
maybe the next one we will invite them to lunch. Yeah.
Yes, so there's definitely lots of benefits in participating in this discussion, staying active. Thank you. Yes, there's already a few people that responded. I absolutely do. I definitely want to have an autograph on my book and my copy. I'll definitely, okay. I'll keep it.
I'll sign for you.
But I'm pretty sure. So Naveen actually might also have some interesting examples of this. You know, the orchestration of the network effects, and some part of it is connected to the API ecosystem and how to manage it properly. So, Naveen, you've been a core member of the team that co-designed, co-developed, co-executed the API exchange, which is also known as Apex. So tell us why was it created? What vision did the regulator have? What is the genesis of Apex, and what can it solve?
Yeah, it's incredible. You know, it's covered in chapter 6. What I did was, Arina, I put together, you know, a few quick slides to explain how the Singapore ecosystem thinks and goes after a problem, attempts to solve it, learns, adapts, improves, and succeeds. So let me see if you know, I can quickly check. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we are. If you could do a full screen, I think we're, yes, there you go.
So I put together, you know, a few of these slides. And so, you know, when the Chief Fintech Office was started back in 2015, I think it took a year or two to find its feet. It was like a startup by itself, isn't it? That nothing before existed called the Chief Fintech Office, and you've got to invent it, you've got to create it. And one of the problems that Swapnendu talked about back in early 2017 was that after he started speaking with banks and started speaking with fintechs, it was apparent that both sides were not finding a way to collaborate with each other, which was easier than it had been up until then. And fintechs had great ideas, and they knew the problems that banks had. They were able to solve them, but banks had systems and processes which were not ready to take them in at ease. And so the next 3-4 slides also talk about how Singapore thinks. And so the first thing that I've learned, you know, working closely with Swapnendu and the MAS Chief Fintech Office team, is that there is a clear method in the thinking, which is, let's acknowledge that there is a problem and there are hurdles. And so financial institutions on one side, they want to legally cover everything. They want to, their IT risk guys want to make sure that the fintech is not going to disappear tomorrow. The procurement guys want to make sure that they follow all security protocols, blah, blah, blah. So that's where the financial institutions are. On the fintech side, these are guys who have limited cash. They have limited runway ahead of them. They have great ideas, and they can't take 15, 20 meetings in a year before they can even start a POC. So how do you improve that system? So the first thing that the MAS did was, let's acknowledge that this is something that needs to be solved. The second thing that they do is, let's understand each component of the problem. that what actually happens and where are the roadblocks. So here is a sort of a process map that the Apex Foundation was built on. So if there is a digital head in a bank who says, look, I want to do digital onboarding of all my credit card customers. Now, the typical process today is that you would start with a Google search. Where are the providers? You would call some friends, say, hey, have you done something like this? That process takes anywhere between 6 to 12 weeks before you can come up with a short list of 3-4 that you identify. Then the legal teams take over, then the IT clearances, then the infrastructure provisioning, data exchange. This entire process from start to end is probably a 30, 40, 50 week process. The fintechs die in the meantime because they run out of cash. It's very, very painful. So what the MAS and the Chief Fintech Office did was they said, can we solve this by leveraging the B2B platform technologies that Amazon and Netflix and Facebook and all of these companies, Salesforce, are doing. So Apex was born as an idea in February 2017, where the MAS said, let us create a platform which has financial institutions on one side and fintechs on the other side, and give them a way to register on the platform so all fintechs can be easily discovered in one single place. And can this platform become the Google for fintechs? So you don't have to go and Google it by yourself. Just come to this platform and we will have all fintechs from around the world registered on it. So imagine the thinking that goes behind the scale that something which was so small, a problem that you acknowledged and you wanted to grow it out. The second thing was, as Dr. Koh said, can we provide a sandbox inside the platform? And can the experimentation happen without the two parties anymore needing to do any NDAs with each other, because both of them are members of the same platform, without they having to provision any IT first, because as soon as a bank opens a membership account on the platform, you automatically get all the IT that you need provisioned on the cloud for you instantly. And then if you cannot bring your own data and give it to the fintech, can we use APIs and some synthetic data that the Apex platform provides for the two sides to collaborate with each other and see in an experimentation mode what you can do? Now, this is how that problem that was identified in February 2017 started to get framed and solved. And this was a beta launch which happened at the 2018 Fintech Festival. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and at the time DPM Thurman inaugurated it. And I must acknowledge that the first version of Apex 1.0 that was launched at that time was really quite bad. It was an amalgamation of ideas. It was some sort of a platform that was working. And we remember going to Myanmar and making a presentation to about 250 bankers and developers and fintechs. And we came back with 80 things that were wrong with the platform. 80 things. And we went back to the drawing board and relaunched the platform in late 2019. And so you acknowledge a problem, you identify how to solve it, you attempt to solve it, you take it to market, see if it is accepted, it works, or reinvent it. And this is exactly what the MAS did. You know, they're quite bold, at least in the Chief Fintech Office. They decided to fund the idea. They brought the International Finance Corporation and the ASEAN Bankers Association together as founding members, and they started. So what I want to do is I want to play a 3-minute video here, which will now give everybody an idea. This was what was used in late 2019. So the numbers are a little outdated. They are much bigger now, and I will cover that shortly. But let's see how the API Exchange platform, which was just an idea 3 years ago, has grown. So here you go.
We're excited to join the Apex platform and work with other financial leaders in driving innovation and collaboration.
Collaborations between emerging and established fintech players, such as those supported by Athens platform, these are crucial.
We look forward to expanding in the region through Apex to enhance financial inclusion in the region.
The alternative to Apex would have been to engage all these fintechs on a one-to-one basis, working out our proof of concepts, our sandbox arrangements. It just takes forever.
Open API platforms like Apex are critical for the success of fintech ecosystems. For example, with Apex, we managed to build a successful proof of concept in less than a week.
I understand the API platform is easy to onboard to and a great sandbox to
What's sitting here in London, we could successfully deliver a POC in Singapore.
Apex platform enables us to bring our ideas to life using APIs from the National Stock Exchange in a matter of days, which would have otherwise taken us months.
NSE is very delighted to be the first stock exchange globally on APIX.
Our leading Philippine bank is going to use Apex platform and our location APIs to create their new generation of e-banking solutions.
A very powerful video. Thank you, Naveen.
We're a great supporter of Apex.
APIX has made the collaboration simplified with the financial ecosystem.
We at Here Technologies are privileged to be partnering with Apex.
We would like to work with global ecosystem participants on many other ideas using the Apex platform.
MasterCard is honored to be inducted into Athens.
We believe we can contribute in deep and meaningful ways.
Apex has made the unthinkable possible.
Wow, very impressive.
Okay, so this is where Apex was a year and a half ago, and now let's see where is it that Apex is. Right, it's a marketplace that's growing rapidly. There are 60 financial institutions, almost 400 fintechs from 30 different countries, representing about 50 plus different types of capabilities on the platform. We've now launched a virtual hackathon vertical in the Apex platform, and the biggest big are starting to host their hackathons on the platform. It's incredible that on an average, a little over 100 proposals are received for each single problem statement on this platform. Now, that's the power of how Singapore thinks and works and drives a problem and attempts to solve it. The last slide I have is there is now a need felt for Singapore and Apex to start to develop a research-based platform about fintech. So every fintech could ultimately land up having some sort of a rating. That you're 7.8 out of 10, you're 5 out of 10 on this, but you're 9 out of 10 on that. So there is a think tank that's currently working to invent this research platform. There's a knowledge sharing platform coming. So these are things that really make Singapore very unique, and a lot of this is covered in the book. And we think the future is really very exciting for the fintech community, for the financial services industry in Singapore and globally as a result of what Singapore is attempting to create.
And I'll use that as a cue to probably my last question. I actually did want to touch on the future state. I meant to ask a question to Dr. Koh and to yourself. How do you see the Singapore fintech ecosystem grow and evolve in the future? What do you think we should all be looking forward to?
I'll let Dr. Koh go. Yeah. You're on mute.
You're on mute again, yes?
Okay, I think I actually said that in the book as well, that it is the culture, it is the people that will drive success. I mean, everything can be look so good on blueprints, on everything else, but it's the people that drives it, is the culture that you build that matters. That's why my co-author Varun and myself, we keep emphasizing on Singanomics. Because that DNA of being Kiasu, that DNA of being, very, very excellence-oriented matters. At the same time, it is like, it's like how this ecosystem can provide that open ground for experimentation. At the same time, it empowers you. So if you don't have that culture, it's going to take a long time and you're going to have, a very phenomenal change that was built over time. And thanks to our forefathers, LKY for sure, we have that ingrained in us. All right, that's why we use the other term. What's the other term we use? Something on innovation. All right, so Singanomics, right first, fast later, that kind of concept, and that hunger in the belly is definitely necessary to drive success. So we saw all these that brought Singapore to where we are today, and the immediate concern, especially to me, is how we are going to sustain that and continue to scale. And to me, as an educator, investing in human talent, in developing this human capital is a must. Over to you, Nevin.
Yeah, thanks. So there are a couple of things that I think if we look at the next 2 years, the most exciting things that are happening are in two areas. One is the digital bank licenses that have just gone out and they've been announced. So clearly there is a logical expectation that these new digital bank licenses are going to give new impetus to fintechs who hopefully will be consumed by these new age digital banks. So I think I'm quite looking forward to how they will be different. So that's quite exciting. The second thing I think is sustainability. And we're increasingly, at least on the Apex platform, starting to hear a lot about green tech, sustainable finance. In fact, early next month, actually in about 2 weeks from now, Apex is already hosting a first webinar where we are bringing green tech fintech companies from the Nordics and all the way from New Zealand together in one platform and asking them to showcase to financial institutions what their capabilities are and what they can do with them. And these are really top-notch solutions, and Apex is enabling that. And Apex is looking to create a dedicated vertical inside itself, which is focused on green finance, sustainable finance, and green tech. So I think for me, the future for the next couple of years, maybe a bit more, it's hard to see beyond 2 or 3 years these days, but say next couple of years, those are two areas that I'm quite excited about.
I wanted to touch on, I think there is an important element of Apex, which is about international collaboration and interconnectivity. Perhaps you can share more details about some of the, the successful collaborations in that space. I think I've heard about some, New Zealand collaborations, some India. I think a corridor with India is pretty strong flow or exchange happening already in that space. What are the other things? I feel that, I think I read it in your quote, actually, also in the book, Naveen, that Singapore is a relatively, small market by itself, but it can only operate if it enables things for all the other parts of the world, and if it enables this international collaboration. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, sure. And then I have a question for you, because you can't be asking the questions. Sure. So Singapore, through the Singapore Fintech Association, which was another very important milestone that came into being in 2016, has now done tie-ups with several fintech associations around the world. And there are pre-COVID regular delegations that would be two-way delegations that would go and come from Singapore and to Singapore from all of these places and drive collaboration. The Nordics, Copenhagen Fintech, in the Philippines, India is a big part of that entire ecosystem that's developing. Japan, Africa is massively attractive for Singaporean fintech, Singapore as a country, and those ecosystems are very rich. We clearly see that Apex, Apex just announced a hackathon from NPCI, which is, as big as it gets in payments in India, and they're covering 1.3, 1.4 billion people within, the partnership that was announced just last week. Within 7 or 8 hours of NPCI announcing their hackathon on Apex, we had about 180 proposals that had come in. So that's the power of partnership and collaboration and platformization that Singapore has achieved through the Apex platform. So, but I'll shut up. Irina, what is it that your experience has been? Rapid's a big unicorn now. You've just announced $300 million of your most recent fundraise in January. What are you going to do with all that money? And what has your personal experience been, observing Singapore as a fintech nation?
Sure, right. So let me start with the first question. The foundation of Rapid's solutions is indeed in this network mentality. When we collaborate with the other nodes and other stakeholders in the ecosystem, trying to normalize their APIs and their solutions, and basically create a single point access. What that can be called, there's different terms. Some people call it payments as a service, fintech as a service. So we create white label B2B solutions for anyone who wants to expand internationally. How we're going to use the money is probably two ways. So one is continue to accelerate our organic growth, so invest in our product technology into our network. But also the second half of the money is not just about growing our teams and enabling and enhancing them. It is also going to be associated with some amount of M&A, so some amount of a small amount of acquisitions, good and strategic acquisitions that could enhance our capabilities. So that's something that we're hoping to see in the next 12 months or so. And I think following an open invitation from our leaders, I would probably encourage some of the startups in the space, or scale-ups in the space, if they're interested, to possibly see if there's any ways to either collaborate or possibly even find an investor or a partner in Rapid.
And sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, please. Oh, you want to?
No. I just wanted to say that one of the areas that the fintech community looks forward to, I think, in Singapore, and to a great extent even in Southeast Asia, is exits. And as you're mentioning that, M&A is potentially an area that some part of that fundraise could be used. So that augurs really well for the community in Singapore and in the region.
Oh, absolutely. I think we're all looking forward to our next to the next exit in the market, which is hopefully going to be Grab, or so it seems. We'll see. I'm hearing some positive signals from the market. But yes, I agree with you. And then back to my experience, I think in the fintech space, in the fintech scene in Southeast Asia and Singapore specifically. Yeah, I guess I was mentioning the opening, the first Singapore Fintech Festival. It was incredible to see the amount of insights, the amount of ambition, the vision, all of the different stakeholders, global stakeholders coming together at the same stage, at the same space to have this dialogue. I think that was that is a very important initiative that I agree with you. I look forward to probably more than most of the other festivities. The other things and the other milestones that I found very important is, for instance, same principle, how the regulator is driving some initiatives, how Pay Now was launched in 2017, celebrating the sort of the connection of the whole ecosystem. And instead of basically like supporting individual models and individual competitions, individual company competitions, actually connecting, serving as a glue. So Pay Now has been launched about 3 years ago, but it's grown tremendously, and it really becomes this additional layer. And how it works with the real-time nature of it is extremely valuable for small businesses, medium-sized businesses, though we're in the places where shorter time, shorter fulfillment time, and shorter settlement time is extremely important. So I find it a very powerful initiative, and what I would like to see in the future is how Pay Now is going to be interconnected with some of the other real-time payment networks around the world. There's about 50 or 60 right now. So the recent news, the recent SFF, we saw an announcement of Pay Now being connected to PromptPay, Thailand's real-time payment network. I'm hoping to see more of those things happening. In fact, I would love to see the same network effect being integrated, implemented on the country levels. So basically, multiple countries around the world, hopefully as many as possible, really having those coming up together and signing some sort of an agreement to connect all of those real-time payment networks around the world. I think that it would be a massive thing. And I guess for me, actually, one of the milestones was also the launch of Apex. Yeah. It is, again, a celebration of this collaborative mindset, and I found it really, really important to have a way to showcase the best technology in the market. We're running out of time. I'll stop there myself. I think we've heard a lot of really amazing and valuable insights today. I see there's no questions in the chat box, so we're gonna finish on time. And before we do, I understand, Sophia, please correct me, this is the beginning of the series. There will be a few more episodes, and we'll culminate with some discussions on the digital banking with Varun Mittal, the second author of the book, discussing the principles of digital banking and what impact it can drive with the practitioners, with people that are the licensees, the newly awarded licensees. Sophia, please correct me if I'm wrong. And next session, I guess you, Sophia, would share more details about when and how would that be announced.
Yes, as interesting as today's session as well. We look forward to subsequent series. So we'll be sharing the dates with the audience as well in our EDMs. So I'd like to first thank you, Fintech Academy, for partnering with us for this webinar. And thank you, Dr. Koh, for speaking at today's event. I'd like to thank the speakers as well, Navin, Irina, for your insights, fantastic sharing. So we know a little bit more about Singapore's stance as a fintech hub. So, and we'll also be talking about the future in the upcoming series as well. So thank you, audience, for joining us. If you want to reach out to the speakers, you can go through Spectrum, or you can reach them on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to do the connection. So next part 2, let's look at April. The dates will be sent to you shortly. And then, but do look out for webinars in March, which we will have send out the calendars to you. So without further ado, thank you so much, speakers, audience. Thank you for spending the day this morning with us. Take care, stay safe, and stay well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Bye.